Antman and the Wasp Quantumania is finally here, and we get to talk about it because it was one of my biggest disappointments of the year since Thor: Love and Thunder. I mean, by all means, it's not a horrible movie. I still enjoyed parts of it, but some of the stuff did fall flat. It just didn't feel like an Ant-Man movie. It felt more like a movie setting up Phase 5, which I did like where Phase 5 is going to go now. However, I wish it was more of an Ant-Man 3 rather than the first movie in Phase 5, if that makes sense. So in this video, we're going to be reviewing it. I'm not going to be too negative. There is stuff I still like, and I want to talk about the stuff I did enjoy as well. We're going to be breaking it down and talking about the plot while still kind of reviewing it as we go through, because there's a lot to talk about, honestly, and talking about the references to the other Marvel movies, as well as talking about the post-credit scenes, because those set up a majority of Phase 5, and talk about some of my theories that were completely wrong, but should have been true. So let's jump into Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Welcome to Nonstop Antonio, where I talk about everything nerdy. I love Marvel, DC, and anime, and if you do too, I hope you enjoy this video. So right off the bat, this one was really hard for me because when I came into it, I was really looking forward to Ant-Man 3. I really enjoyed the first two. I know a lot of people don't like Ant-Man and the Wasp, but I really like that movie. It's one of the ones where I can just keep rewatching it. However, with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, because it felt more like a setup movie for Phase 5, it didn't really feel like an Ant-Man 3. It didn't feel like it should have been his third movie. I was saying that it should have been like more like a special presentation, something to set up the phase, rather than it being Ant-Man's third movie. Even though there were still a lot of aspects to it that would make an Ant-Man 3, I still feel like they should have done a few more things to really shoehorn it being more of Ant-Man and focusing on the character, rather than how separated it was and how everyone was split off, and they didn't really focus on Ant-Man as much or the other characters. It was kind of just all over the place. Because one of the biggest things, it didn't really feel thematically or tonally like the other Ant-Man movies, if that makes sense. Like, Ant-Man has a lot of jokes. This movie did have the jokes. However, sometimes the jokes just felt out of place, or it was just very quiet with not a lot of talking. I know a lot of people don't like Marvel movies when they cut out a frame and they're doing something serious and they crack a joke, but that's Paul Rudd, Ant-Man, and Scott Lang and everything, and I like that about him. I like how his character's more the comedic one, and he does say stuff that he shouldn't be saying in serious moments. But in this, it just it didn't work as much. And I really like Catherine Newton as well. Some of her dialogue did fall really flat, and she seemed to be just running around yelling dad a lot. However, I still gotta remember that she's playing a teenager, and she did act like a teenager a lot of the times. And I really did like seeing Scott Lang being that father, being really worried about his daughter, not wanting her to get involved in the superhero life, while she's also kind of following in his footsteps. And I love how when he finds out she has a suit, he's like, okay, this is how you do it. You go small and use momentum and you punch. And he's kind of teaching her how to do it. It's just like a fun scene with father and daughter. And I really like that part of the film, which was the father-daughter aspect. I also liked how she called Hank Grandpa, because I guess Scott and Hope have been together for so long now. They're, it's kind of like a adoptive family. It's like her grandfather, but not really. Which I think it was fun, just calling him Grandpa. I like that. One of my friends was like, why would you call him Grandpa? I'm like, well, think of this. If Hope and Scott are married, she would call him Grandpa after some time if she felt comfortable doing that. And with the movie, too, I liked the intro. It was a little fun, but it went right into it. Like, we just really picked up the action as we went in. The intro was really short. We got introduced to Scott, what the family's been doing. Hope's been saving the world, helping out, building up her company, making people's lives better. The family's kind of doing their own thing. Hank, Hope, and Cassie are trying to get into the quantum realm. Scott's just living his life, not being a hero. His daughter's kind of mad at that. Boom, everyone gets sucked in the quantum realm, and it just goes boom, 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 boom from there. But this is where it kind of gets a little messy, because everyone gets separated, and it just feels like it takes so long for them to get back together, where it feels like they aren't focusing enough time on certain characters, and there's just so much going on at the same time, it's hard to focus on what to watch. However, Jonathan Majors as Kang was top-notch. I think Jonathan Majors was the highlight of this movie. He carried it, and I cannot wait to see him portray Kang in more future movies, because he is a fantastic actor, and he literally did the best job during the movie. He is the MVP of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. MODOK was hilarious. Like, you see the character from the comics, he's absolutely ridiculous, and you know he's gonna look ridiculous, and that's what I liked. And I loved everyone's interaction with him. The first time Scott meets him, whoa, Darren Cross, is that you? And just like, what happened to you? And then when Hope runs into, whoa, is that Darren Cross? Just like funny moments throughout all of it, and I really enjoyed that part. However, I don't think he needed a hero moment in the end. He should have just been, himself. He didn't need to be a hero. He could have just died and they could have left it at that. Even though the Cassie calling him a dick and don't be a dick scene was kind of funny, I don't think he needed a hero moment in the end. But his line saying, am I an Avenger now? And Scott being like, yeah, you're an Avenger, as he dies, was pretty funny. I also find it funny how Scott Lang is supposed to be all threatening to Kang, like, give me my daughter, I will take you down. And Scott Lang is just not threatening, which just feels off, but also it feels right. I don't know, I have so many mixed opinions about this, because there's stuff I like, there's stuff I don't, but it all kind of didn't blend together as well as I would hope it would have. And I just left the theater disappointed. Again, it's not the worst movie. I've seen way worse Marvel movies, but it's also not the best. I honestly like the first two a lot more than this one, but I do like what it sets up for Phase 5. However, at least we can say that the movie looks stunning, the CGI was fantastic, the quantum realm was weird and massive, and it looked really cool. That's what I like about the quantum realm and going into different realities, is having this weird reality to look at, seeing these different things, and how it portrayed. Like, you got these weird creatures, you got all this big shit flying around, it looked cool and unique, and I really like that, and the CG looked phenomenal. Way better than some of the other Marvel movies. However, like, some of the suit designs, like Wasp's look good, Cassie's look good, Antman's, it was okay. I liked his old suit a little better than the new one. And I'm honestly surprised they didn't give Hank or Janet suits this time, especially because, they were Ant-Man and the Wasp back in the day. And when I was watching the movie, I always forget they were S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and that they were Ant-Man and the Wasp, because they can kick some ass just like anyone else sometimes. And the movie did feel really Star Wars-y. Like, every time they did anything, I'm like, this feels like Star Wars. It just gave me that Star Wars vibe. Let's start breaking down the movie now, because there's just a lot to talk about, because I feel like with the fact that there's just so much going on, there's so much to talk about. How when Janet Van Dyne was stuck in the quantum realm originally, she's the one that met Kang. He crash landed in the quantum realm, and she helped him, nursed him back to health, helped him fix his time machine, until she realized when she touched it, it connected to his mind, and she realized what he was. He would destroy timelines, he would conquer Earth, and he was Kang the Conqueror. But we also find out from Kang that there was a multiversal war where a bunch of variants of him were fighting. He was gonna win, and they all betrayed him and sent him to the quantum realm, which is what He Who Remains said, in a sense, because He Who Remains said there was a multiversal war. He was the Kang that won. So you had all the Kangs, you had the one that got stuck in the quantum realm, and you had He Who Remains. He Who Remains won. The Kang who got stuck in the quantum realm lost, and then He Who Remained betrayed all the other ones, I'm assuming, and became the top one. So I like how we got both those interactions referencing the same multiversal war in everything. And we got another reference to more incursions, like in Doctor Strange's Multiverse of Madness, which is leading us into Secret Wars in the Kang Dynasty. So we know it's coming, and I feel like they're going to keep dropping incursions in multiple movies and shows to start prepping us for that big Avengers level threat and what's going to go down, this multiversal threat, because they also talk about the multiverse dying, which is a big thing from the comics as well. We get to introduce some interesting characters as well when we're in the quantum realm, like Janet's love while she was in there. His name is Kryler, played by Bill Murray, which was cool to see Bill Murray and also watch him getting his ass kicked by Hank when the jealous husband wins in the end by making that thing that he was drinking grow. And I'm assuming he died there, but I like how Hank's like, I got the one up on you. The husband who finds out his wife had another lover, and he's not having it. But in the comics, this character is from a world called Kai. It's Kai. So this is a world inside the Microverse, which is in the Marvel Universe, the quantum realm. And Kryler is a descendant of that world. So we can assume that Kang took over their world, because that's also where Jentora is from. And Jentora in the comics is the niece of the late Queen Jarella of the planet Kai. And fun fact, Jarella also has a tie to the Hulk, because they fell in love when he got trapped in the Microverse, but when they got pulled back to Earth 616, she died saving a boy from being crushed by a building and got crushed herself. And the thing is, we didn't really get too far into the quantum realm. Like, we got introduced to it, we met all these people, the rebels, everyone that's there, but it just kind of moved so quickly that we were just focused on Kang, and we weren't focused on the quantum realm in itself, which I think is where the movie went wrong, where instead of setting up Kang, it should maybe just did that at the very end in the post-credit scenes. It should have been more about Ant-Man exploring the Microverse, or I mean the quantum realm in this case. However, they didn't do that, And again, it was just so much shoved in our face, which is why I think it was kind of a disappointment and it didn't really feel like an Ant-Man movie. And we also met Quaz, who a lot of people were saying was going to be Quasar, I was reading. And on top of it, I remember when the first set photo came out of him, people were like, oh, that's going to be Reed Richards. However, it's not. It's a guy that can read minds, and I could not find anything comic related on him. So if you know what it is, let me know down in the comments. I did like in this movie how Cassie finally got her hero moment. This whole movie, she was trying to kind of prove herself to her father and be a hero just like him. And even during the movie, she talks about how Scott isn't a hero anymore. He's not doing anything after Endgame. He's not being a hero. But I feel like after everything that happened to him, he just wants time to spend with his daughter. But his daughter wants to be a hero. She wants to take place after her father. She looks up to him and wants to be a hero of her own because she has her own suit now. And I love how it just slowly leads to her having her own hero moment. She takes down the guards, she saves the rebels, and she gives the Microverse people an inspirational speech in a sense, and gets them all riled up to fight back against Kang as they all take on the massive fortress where he's residing. And I love how we get Scott Lang and Cassie Lang going giant mode and giving each other a nice father-daughter hug, but both in giant mode, which was cool. I like seeing Cassie turn giant because in the comics, her name is Stature, and I don't think she turned small a lot. She's more of a grower than a shrinker with her first time when she first got her powers, and then it changed over time, of course. But I really like her character, and I am looking forward to seeing more of the future. I definitely thought that the post-credit scene was going to be her getting recruited by Kate Bishop for us Young Avengers, but I guess we gotta wait for a few more Young Avengers to show up first before they start recruiting. Scott and Kang's first interaction was great because I love Scott being like, you don't know who you're messing with, I'm an Avenger. And he's like, have I killed you before? Really showing how big of a threat Kang is because he's taken down the Avengers. Even if you watch some of the cartoons, Kang is a threat. He is really powerful, especially because of his future tech. And I cannot wait to see the Avengers take him on because it's going to be a different lineup of the Avengers too, with vastly different powerhouses. So I'm very curious to see how they deal with it. I thought the whole idea of Scott getting Kang's device back to travel out of the quantum realm was interesting because he had to shrink down to this probability sphere because of everything that happened, and because it's a multiversal core engine, it kept giving him possibilities of what could happen. So Scott just kept dying and dying and dying, multiple versions of him, and I love how they're all just kind of like struggling over each other, keep separating into more and more, and you had one that was just the Baskin-Robbins Scott. So everything was all Ant-Man, but you had the one that could just be the Baskin-Robbins one and nothing else, which was funny. And I like how all the Scotts got together and like, we need to help Cassie. So as soon as they all do that, they have one goal and they just work their way to doing it. And of course, it took Hope to coming in to save them to really fix everything. And then you think they all lose because they were able to shrink it. Kang beats them because he's OP as shit. And then we all know the true hero of the Ant-Man movie shows up, the ants. Because Hank's ants are in the quantum realm as well, but now they're super smart and futuristic because they lived 1,000 years in a day and now built a civilization in the quantum realm. But they still listen to Hank. And I love how Hank in the final battle as well has his army of ants come in, and he's just like, we got ants. It's just, that stuff felt more like Ant-Man having the ants come in. Also, having the ants beat Kang in a sense just wasn't the best. I don't think they should have beat Kang at all, and I definitely think that both Hank and Janet should have been either stuck in the quantum realm or one of them died. I just don't think Scott or Hope should have died, which they didn't. And it felt kind of off that someone didn't die during this, but it also felt off that Kang kind of died during this. Because he's such a big threat, I don't think Ant-Man and the Wasp should have been able to take him out. And also during the big fight, while Scott and Cassie were being giants, I love seeing Ant-Man and the Wasp do a fastball special, where Wasp threw a tiny Ant-Man and he turned giant to smash into Kang's ship and break it. Which right there and then, that was pretty cool. That was really cool. But this movie really did show how big of a threat Kang is because he absolutely destroyed the quantum realm people, literally one-shotting them all, and he was beating the absolute shit out of Scott. Scott looked like he was gonna die, even though I knew he wasn't gonna die, but he looked like he was gonna die. He got his ass absolutely handed to him. And you thought they were gonna get out. Janet opens a portal, gets them out of the quantum realm, and I like how Scott pushes Cassie through the portal before Kang can get to them, and Scott just has to make sure that they both lose, which is what they set up in the trailer. And right before the portal can close, after Scott pulls a Janet by trying to destroy the spear again so that Kang can't use his power source, Hope comes through and saves the day, and they knock Kang into his own power source, and Kang gets sucked into it, which later in the movie they say he's dead, but when Hope and Scott were in there, they weren't dead, but they were small in there. So part of me feels like he just got dragged in there and got shrunk down, because when Scott slammed the Pym particles, he had the ones that made you larger and the ones that made you smaller all at the same time into it. So something different's going on there, and I feel like that version of Kang will come back in the future in some way. So let's jump into some Easter eggs and references real quick, because we got Jimmy Woo returning, which was fun, and Scott did the card trick that Jimmy Woo likes to do. The only disappointing part was the fact that we didn't see any more of Scott's crew, and it would have been nice to see some of them just for a quick moment before they jumped into the Quantumania route. We also got multiple callbacks to the Antman movies and the Avengers movies. We keep getting reference about Scott saving the world in Endgame, and on top of it, him going to Germany to fight with Captain America, just showing that, this has happened, and they will reference stuff going on in the past, which I like. I like when they, reference stuff that happened, because those are all big moments for Scott as well as characters between his movies, and I really like that. But I felt like I didn't notice as many Easter eggs and references in this movie. Either that or I'm just oblivious and I completely missed them. But hey, the few I did pick up, I enjoyed, because I like seeing it. It shows character development. Like I said, movie wasn't bad. I like the characters. I think they probably should have spent a little bit more time with the Quantum Realm people, really exploring them rather than so much on Kang. Because yeah, Kang's a big threat. And again, it just felt like a setup movie for Kang. It didn't feel like an Ant-Man 3. And I think that Ant-Man 3 should have been more of them exploring the Quantum Realm, dealing with the Quantum Realm people, and then meeting Kang. Or meeting someone completely different, and then Kang being set up in the very end. Like, imagine they had another villain in the Quantum Realm, and they defeated him, but by defeating him, it released Kang. Something like that. Let's talk about the mid and post-credit scenes from this movie, because it literally just sets up Kang and Loki Season 2. Because in the mid-credit scene, we got a council of Kangs showing all the different ones coming out. We got Immortus, we got Rama Tut, and I'm assuming that they all came back because of what happened after Loki Season 1 with He Who Remains and the multiverse even branching. So all the Kangs that were erased from the timeline are now all back, and they're teaming up together to take over the timeline, and they know that the Kang that was in the Quantum Realm is apparently dead. So they don't have that big of a threat to deal with anymore, but there's still probably one Kang in there that's going to betray them all and become God Emperor Kang instead of God Emperor Doom for Secret Wars. And the way all the Kangs entered the council was just like Reed Richards in Multiverse of Madness, showing that they are all descendants of Reed Richards. Now, the post-credit scene is literally setting up Loki Season 2, because I think it's a scene grabbed straight from the season, which shows Loki and Mobius in a theater. And we have this character named Victor explaining how time shapes everyone. But it's Kang. It's Jonathan Majors standing there. And he's talking about how you might be able to shape it in return, which looks like he's talking about the TVA and shaping time. And I like how Loki's and whispers Mobius, that's him. It's him. And Mobius like, oh, you made him sound like a terrifying figure. Loki, he is. And we don't really get to see much more. It's just really quickly, which can be interesting. And we saw at the end of Loki Season 1, Kang's statue was in the TVA. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Loki Season 2, and I hope we do see this scene so we can get more context of what's happening. I was still hoping for one of these post-credit scenes to be Kate Bishop recruiting Cassie Lang, or something to go on with the Young Avengers now that we got multiple of them in the MCU, or setting up maybe the next Avengers film, or connecting to the Marvels, or even connecting to Shang-Chi, but that never happened, and it was more just the Council of Kangs and Loki Season 2. So I am interested to seeing what happens next, and what big threat Kang is going to be doing. And, what the Kangs want. Because if they're all working together, they'll rule over each of their own timelines, but we'll see. Now, lastly, before we finish everything off, let's talk about how my theory was completely wrong, and my theory was the fact that Hank Pym was going to sacrifice himself to save everyone, and then that didn't happen. Which I thought would have worked. We also had the theory about the pulsating signal from Shang-Chi being in the Quantum Realm and Ant-Man being stuck down there, which is also not the case, and that doesn't seem to be connecting into it at all. It seems like it's still probably going to access something in space rather than something in the Quantum Realm. And that makes me wonder if it's going to be maybe connecting to the Marvels rather than connecting to Ant-Man and the Wasp with Kang. It might connect to whatever's going on with the Bangle and Miss Marvel and the Marvels in the next movie. which has now been pushed till November. That movie got delayed too, so here's some news on top of everything else that's going on in this video. But like I said, overall with this movie, not my favorite, not my most hated. I think I need to rewatch it to get a better opinion on it, just so I can kind of understand a little bit more about what's going on, because sometimes I was just kind of sitting there waiting for something to happen, like, okay, what's happening next? Like, what's going on? Let's move the plot along. But also, again, so much was happening at the same time where I was like, okay, where do I focus? Who like, okay, that character died. I didn't have any emotional attachment to him. Well, that sucked. Oh, none of our main characters look like they're going to get affected in any way. Okay. It's just like no stakes were really there. And I don't know, a lot of stuff fell flat for me. Even though I love the Antman movies, I love Paul Rudd. It just, I don't know, I was disappointed. Even though I don't hate it, I still had fun moments and there were still funny moments I really enjoyed. It's just a mixed bag of bones for me. What did you think of Antman and the Wasp Quantumania? I'm interested in your opinion because mine is really mixed and I want to hear what other people think because I've heard two sides. It's aggressively okay, which I agree with, or it's really bad. But I also have heard people love it. So, you know, everyone has different opinions on this movie and I want to hear what yours is. Let me know some of the Easter eggs that you noticed, or if there's what you think is going to happen in the future as well. Any theories you want to talk about? I want to plan out for the future of the MCU. I want to see what's going to happen next. I want to see what you think is going to happen next. So let me know down in the comments. And if you liked my breakdown, I know it's a little bit longer than the other ones, but I had a lot to say this time. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot. And I'm going to keep trying to do this for every Marvel series and movie as it comes out. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.